Very good. Good evening, everyone. This is the Red Hook Town Board meeting of February 8th, 2022. Would you be kind enough to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Good evening, everyone. This is the Red Hook Town Board meeting of February 8th, 2022. Would you be kind enough to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Okay, let's get that. We have the echo going again. All right. Very good. As we do each and every first meeting of the month, we will begin the Supervisor's Report. But for the folks at home, I'd like to show you tonight's agenda. We're doing the Supervisor's Report, Clerk's Report. It's a short agenda. We're going to be taking a look at a presentation by Host Compliance, also known as Granicus now. They provide short-term rental services to Dutchess County, and we may be interested in additional services as it relates to administration of our new code. We also have a task order to consider for an engineering study related to recurring drainage issues in Forest Park. And I should say that this is not unique to Forest Park, as climate change continues to impact our community like other communities. And it intersects with developments that were built with substandard or now substandard drainage design. This is going to be increasingly an infrastructure issue for lots of municipalities. We are headed back to our proposed building and fee schedule for consideration for some changes for 2022 and perhaps even in the future as well. And then we're going to do some additional work as it relates to reorganization. Okay, and I should tell you that we may jump around a little bit in the list of the agenda. So let's start, shall we, with the Supervisor's Report. And for the folks at home, a reminder that this is a snapshot of the municipality's finances at any given moment. In this case, we're talking about the period ending January 31st. We started with an opening balance of a little more than $7.5 million, disbursements of $685,000, while we received receipts of $447. Leaves us a remaining balance of $7.34 million. That is all the dollars in all of the accounts, all of the funds, including our Community Preservation Fund, which is now over $2.5 million. Okay. We also have our variance report that you get each and every month. This is for, again, the period of January. And we have some budget adjustments, again, relating to 2021 as we close out the fiscal year. And we'll be providing you with a report within a month or so, but preliminarily, there we go, we can talk tonight. What we see is that we finished the year in very good shape for 2021. So we'll have a very brief presentation on that at the end of the month or beginning of March, more realistically. And here are our budget adjustments, and you can see our contingency accounts increased. And so we'll be appropriating some of those funds towards future expenditures and investments. Okay, are there any questions about the supervisor's report and or the budget adjustments? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve both. Who would like to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Second, thank you, Jacob. All right, all in favor, Julia Solomon?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Okay, very good. We also have the town clerk's monthly report. Deanna, would you be kind enough to give the summary of that, please?
Town clerk's report for the period of January 1st to January 31st, 2022. Total local shares remitted to the supervisor, $4,686.50. Amount paid to New York State Agriculture and Markets for the spay neuter program, $41. Amount paid to New York State Department of Health for marriage licenses, $67.50. Amount paid to New York, it was zero for the DEC. An amount paid to New York State Racing and Wagering for the Games of Chance Bell Jar license, $15, and the total state, county, and local revenues, $4,810.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Okay, very good. Is there a motion to accept the town clerk's report? Don't
So moved.
everybody jump in. Thank you, Jacob. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julia. All in favor, Bill Hamel,
Aye.
myself, aye. Okay, very good. Let's see, announcements, just a couple of announcements. First, Dutchess County is having a free rabies vaccination clinic. That's February 19th. That would be Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. That's a vaccination for cats, dogs, and those of you who have ferrets here in Dutchess County. It's free for county residents and $10 per pet for non-residents. Proof of residency is required, and proof of previous rabies vaccination is required if you want a 3-year certificate, and dogs must be on a leash. The other announcement is we will remind folks at home, the Red Hook Central School District is actually having their information session as we speak. There is a vote on 2 propositions totaling $27 million in capital improvements on February 22nd. That would be a Tuesday, as all votes are, from 12 o'clock to 9 p.m. And that would be on the Mill Road 3-5 section. Additionally, the town has additional home COVID-19 test kits that you can obtain from the library, and you can consult their hours to determine when it's convenient for you to stop over and pick up. It's one box per resident. You must be a resident of the township or the 2 villages. And we expect to have supply at least for the next week or 2. Okay, that's all I have for announcements. Does anybody else have an announcement that they'd like to add? Okay, if not, Bruce, as it turns out, first item on the agenda, we have a presentation by Granicus of their host compliance services. And Bruce, are you with us?
I'm here.
You're there. Okay, terrific. So I'm going to stop share. So
Okay.
that you can take over. And
Perfect.
the reason Bruce is with us tonight is so that the town board can get a presentation of their services. They already provide services relating to short-term rentals for Dutchess County, and they offer additional services for local municipalities to assist in providing short-term rental compliance and administration. So Bruce, why don't you take it away? Tell the folks at home in the town board what it is your company does and why we may be interested in hiring a firm like yours to work for us.
Absolutely. So thanks everyone for having me on tonight. I appreciate your time. I know time is valuable. I definitely want to make this, about you. So at any time, if you have any questions, you feel free to interrupt me. We can dig deeper if need be. So I am from Myrtle Beach. I have a jacket on because we are pretty cold. It's a little bit south of you, but I do work with a lot of clients up New England, New York, so up north as well. And as mentioned, Dutchess County is a current customer of ours. So I'm going to jump right in and just tell you a little bit about Granicus. So Granicus, I was with Host Compliance kind of before we merged. We merged about 2 years ago. Host Compliance has been around for about 6 years. We first started off on the West Coast, and back then there really wasn't a software that was out there to identify short-term rentals. And what I mean by identify them is, understanding who that owner is and being able to identify that owner, where the address, where they're located, which platforms they're on, and then, if they own one property or multiple properties, and then kind of ongoingly monitoring them. Like I mentioned, we started about 6 years ago. We're up to about 425 municipalities throughout the US and Canada right now. I'll show you who we're currently working with in New York. Obviously Dutchess County. Here's some of the other municipalities that we're working with in New York. And if you obviously have this deck. If you want to reach out or need any contacts, just let me know. And I can certainly get you in touch with anybody at these municipalities if you want to ask about our services and how it's going with them, with your peers and, what kind of success they've seen. So next, I'm just going to get a quick high level kind of what's going on with short-term rentals. Obviously with the pandemic, kind of the last 2 years, most people anticipated in 2020, 2021, the short-term rentals are going to kind of go down. A lot of places had moratoriums, whether they were shutting short-term rentals down to safety type reasons. But the real gap, really what happened that we saw across the board is actually short-term rentals increased 10% in 2020, and they're up over 25% in 2021. The hotels kind of did a reverse in 2020, 2021. Occupancy levels on a lot of the hotels went down anywhere to 46%, based on that. And a lot of that does kind of make sense when you think about, people finally getting to travel. If they do decide to go out, people still concerned about safety, number of people, and the idea of going in a hotel and the elevators with people versus being in a short-term rental where you can be with your family kind of isolated makes sense. And that's kind of the trend that we saw. The big thing with most of our customers, the challenge that they see initially is, kind of learning their short-term rental markets, really understanding where they're located, what they're renting, how they're renting. Are they following our ordinance and our rules? Are they following the safety precautions? Is there inspections that are required? All those things are typical of short-term rentals, and trying to do it from a manual process, trying to kind of, go on the 100+ sites that are out there now, and then kind of reverse that to identify them makes it really difficult. And it's really time consuming and resource constraining for most municipalities. And that's kind of where we come in. And I'll show you in a few minutes what our software looks like and how we do this. I'll show you kind of how we do it in the back end so it makes sense. So I'll jump into next. I'm going to go ahead and pull up what I pulled yesterday. And this is just a snapshot in time. So short-term rentals change all the time. So you have seasonality, you have special events, weekends, you have people who just have their short-term rentals all the time. So this is really just a snapshot of who was actually active and taking reservations yesterday. And I'll explain the two numbers because some of it is our language. I'll go to that low number first. That's 68 unique rental units. That's going to be the properties themselves. So as of yesterday, there were 68 properties that were online across the various platforms and accepting reservations. That number 106 above that is the listings. That's going to be the actual advertised sites. So currently we're up to about 70 different platforms that we scan. So, of course, Airbnb is the largest. The second largest is Expedia Group, which owns HomeAway, VRBO, and about 14 other platforms. And then you have TripAdvisor and Priceline. And if you look kind of up here to the top, you'll see what they call the parent companies. So traditionally, HomeAway and Airbnb kind of started the platforms about 11 years ago. And the trend has been a shift over to what they call online travel agents. So TripAdvisor, Priceline, Expedia, and some of the other Booking.com have come in and started to buy these short-term rental sites to kind of bring them under their umbrella. Especially in the last couple of years, especially with COVID, there's big kind of revenue drops in these companies that are working with the hotels. So they wanted to hedge their revenue. So they started buying up all these platforms. So now there's kind of 4 or 5 of the big OTAs that own most of the short-term rental platforms that are out there. So this is just a snapshot. Of course, you know, seasonality. If you come to summertime, this number could be much higher, 30, 40% higher, and during special events. But this is what your market looked like as of yesterday. So I'll take a break for a second. Is there any questions? Does everything make sense so far?
So far, so good.
Okay, everybody's good. Perfect. Okay, next I'll show you some data behind that. So as of yesterday, so the average nightly rate for those properties that was running was $194 per night. And then if you look below, there's what we call unit types. That's going to be associated with kind of what you most ordinance will have is either owner occupied or host occupied, and host unoccupied or owner unoccupied. So 75% of those rentals that were online yesterday were listing their entire house as rental. So that's where that owner is not present. And about 24% what we call partial homes. That's where that owner is present, maybe renting a room or two, maybe to help offset their mortgage or pay for insurance. So you have a pretty good mix there. Most of the areas we look at are about a 90% entire homes, where that, you know, that owner is renting out. About 90% of those are what we call entire home rentals. And then over to the left is just a breakdown of the actual physical properties. So you have a large portion, obviously, of single family homes, about 89%. About 6% were multifamily homes, and then unknown home types can be anything from, you know, a cabin, maybe an ADU. We've seen everything from yurts to tree houses to RVs and boats. So anything that's not a traditional property would come up under that unknown home type. So any questions on this? Everybody's good? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into demo mode really quick, and I'm going to show you where we get this information and match it up with your assessor data. So it makes sense. Just give me 1 second. It may take a second with my internet, depending on the bandwidth to come up. Can everybody see the screen okay with the big map? Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. I just want to give you a high-level overview of what our software looks like, how we can help, and kind of show you where we get this information, and then how we document that information and make that data meaningful and useful. So this is what our software looks like. This is what we call the home page when you first log in. This is the dashboard that you'll see, and it's going to be based on, you know, obviously the short-term rentals in your jurisdiction. This first number over here, 65, where it says total short-term rental units. This is always going to be a changing number, so it's not a stagnant number. So as we're identifying these short-term rentals that have come on these platforms and renting, that number will go up. If somebody takes their house off for a couple of weeks, that will reflect in that number too. So this is kind of a live number that's always changing. Down below here, you can see a breakdown of bedrooms and bathrooms. So for each of these properties that we have, we keep a list of that information. So for example, for occupancy levels, you can see if there may be, you know, exceeding your occupancy levels. Obviously, you don't want 20 people staying at a 2-bedroom house. So I'll show you in a minute reporting how you can see this, but we can set it up so that you can see if you have occupancy levels as part of your ordinance, who's exceeding that and advertising that above their occupancy levels. Then below here would be compliance status. This is based on this area here. They have a registration in place, and they give us the registrations every quarter. We upload that information so we can compare it to the short-term rentals that we're identifying. So that way we can tell, okay, who's online actively advertising but doesn't have a short-term rental license within this city. And you can see here about 46% of the short-term rentals we identified are currently not compliant, so they're not currently registered with the city. And then below here, you'll see a breakdown of single versus multifamily, like I showed you a minute ago, and partial home and entire home. Over here, it's just what we call short-term rental units over time. So I'll walk through kind of how we actually identify these short-term rentals. So we initially go through and we scan all of the short-term rental platforms that are in your jurisdiction. We're currently up to about 70 of them. And then we have what we call a shapefile that we would get and put that in there based on your community, your jurisdiction area. And then we're also going to go out and we're going to scan all these public sites. So this is all public information. Just want to kind of present that, that this is not, you know, looking big brother into anybody's private information. This is all what that host or owner is advertising online. public information. So we're looking at sites like Realtor.com, Redfin, Zillow, as you can kind of get the hint of realty sites. And the reason we do that is over time, that property may have been rented or sold in the past. And these realty sites have to keep that data forever. So we're constantly scanning these sites. And then our software can go through and look at a listing on Airbnb, for example, and they may not show the outside of the house, but they'll show the inside. And there may be some architecture that our software can identify and match that up to maybe a realtor or a Redfin listing. And that's kind of the first process that we go through. The second process is once our software has made a match, then we have about 200 analysts that work for us. And most of them are ex-planners, and they'll go through and make sure that it does match up with your assessor data before we kind of give you a final check mark. So once it's matched up, we'll be able to tell you who that owner is, their address, their parcel ID, lot number, and then which sites they're on, and then also if they own a single property or multi-property. That's kind of the high level of the process we go through for the identification. I'll take a quick break. Does that make sense and kind of how we go through that process? Is there any questions? Is everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay. So once we've identified a property, we're going to put them with a pin on this map exactly where they're located. So this is just a simple Google map. Most people are familiar with it. You can go down to satellite view. You can go exactly down to street level, see exactly where that home is located. Go down to street view as well. And then get back out of here. This one's a little bit busy. This customer has it broken out by geometric and then also color. So a little bit too busy for me. But if you just wanted to see, okay, who's not compliant, so who's not currently registered within our side of our jurisdiction, you can just click here and then you'll see them all lined up on this map. Now, once we've identified a short-term rental, what we do next is every 3 days, we're going to take a snapshot of their listing. And I'm going to show you what it looks like here. So once we've identified a property, we keep what we call a rental unit record. And this is specific to that property and to that owner. And we keep this information forever. So this is just an example. You'll see the address up here. They're currently active. We've identified them. They don't have a license for the community, and they're currently on Airbnb. Now, if they're on multiple sites, you would see tabs for VRBO, HomeAway, as many sites that they're actually listed on with that information. And then below here, you'll see a quick description. We'll show you how we actually match this up. So this one was matched up through Zillow. This is based on, inside of the kitchen, kind of the process. We'll always show you how we went through that matching process. Below here, you'll see their actual Airbnb listing. They're currently active. They're renting out the entire home. Last info was captured yesterday, and the last screenshot was done the 1st. They're charging $539 per night. Now, you can also see cleaning fees, administrative fees, if you want to, any of that data that's out there. When it comes to occupancy levels, you'll see they're charging, you have to stay there for at least a minimum of 5 nights for a single stay. And then they have a maximum sleeping capacity of 5 people per the house, to kind of break down of that. Now, like I mentioned, we do these screenshots every couple of days. And why it's important, it's the documentation of that listing. So I'll show you what one looks like for an example. Looks like they were down, today's the 8th, so they probably took their listing down for a couple of days. But a screenshot's going to have a time and date snapshot on here. So you can see this was done February 1st at 12:42 a.m. And this is going to be their full screenshot of their listing. So for example, this is Airbnb. You'll see the description, all the information about the bedrooms. You'll see their calendars and when they're marked off. And then you also see the time and date stamp review. So all the details about that actual advertisement. Now we do this every couple of days and keep this over here to the left, what we call screenshots. And why it's important is if you have a host who says, you've identified them through our software and they say, hey, I'm not online and I'm not renting, or, I wasn't renting during this, time frame during the summer, you can go back to these screenshots at any time. This one goes back, it looks like back till 2019, the records that we kept for them, and click on any day during that time period and then have that screenshot with that time and date snapshot on there. So that proof that they were actively renting and accepting reservations. This can be printed or, or emailed out or sent out by mail. So it's just the way that we document all that information so that when they're actually actively renting. So let me close this out here. And over here to the right is going to be what we call timeline of activity. So why this is important is we're going to capture whenever they've, for example, taken their listing down, they removed it here on the 13th and then came back on the 18th. And by taking the snapshots, we're going to capture any type of changes they made to their advertisement. And then we're also capturing what we call documented stays. So documented stays is 100% proof of when that actual owner has rented out that property. And how we do that is by taking snapshots we're able to look at their calendars when they're marked off, and then we're taking snapshots of all the time and date stamp reviews. So if you leave a review, for example, with Airbnb, Airbnb has to approve it first and document that you actually stayed there. So you're given a fair and biased review for that owner. And when they leave the review, it's going to have their first name, their initial, where they're from, and then the dates they stayed there. So our software can match it up with the calendars that are marked off, and that's what we call a documented stay. So you'll kind of see throughout here, documented stays for each month or during that time frame, and that's kind of 100% proof of when somebody actually stayed in that rental during that time period. And then up here, just information, you'll see this owner is from Chicago, so not from Maine. So obviously out of town person, could be a second home they're renting, or maybe an investor, their parcel number, latitude and longitude, and then their address here up here for that property. So that's kind of the data that we keep for every single short-term rental. We keep it forever, regardless of how often. If they're only on maybe 10 times a year, you always have this information within inside of our system. So I'll take a quick break. I know it's a lot of information to go through. Any questions so far? Does this all make sense? No question? Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. So the next step is, once we've identified a short-term rental, you have your registration process or your business license. What's the most efficient way and kind of a best practice way to get them registered? So within inside of our system, we make it really simple. We call it compliance monitoring. Dutchess County uses this. And you can send this, basically what we're doing is we're mailing letters out for you, but we make it really simple for somebody from your team, whether it's code enforcement, the business office, to initiate a letter being sent out. I'll just show you an example, kind of a one-off. You can do this in groups, which most people typically do, is every 30 days send out a batch of letters. But if you're just sending a one-off letter, you would just hit send a letter here. And it's going to take you to these templates inside of our system. Now, these templates can be existing letters that you have, or you can also use letters that maybe some of our customers in New York have that are really good and effective letters. Great thing about state and local government is plagiarism. So, we kind of encourage using people that have best practice letters that are really efficient. Now, these letters, I'll show you one here. It's called a first name or permit letter. It's going to have your letterhead on here and your logo. So it's look like it's coming directly from Red Hook. And then, if we have a letter that you want to use, you can maybe change the language a little bit, just to make it more personalized. But have all your contact information in here. Let them know that, we know you're online. Here's your advertisement number in Airbnb. We have a new process in our ordinance that you have to go through and get a registration. And here's the process to do that. And you'll typically have a time frame on here, usually 30 days from the date of this letter. Now, when we do mail this letter out, we always attach a second page, and the second page is going to be a full screen snapshot of their listing. So if they're currently in Airbnb, it would be a screenshot of that Airbnb. The reason we're doing that is we found it effective to kind of give a little extra push to that owner or that host to go through that process and do the right thing. I live in South Carolina. If you go through, sometimes you'll get a letter in the mail with your license plate, picture of your license plate and the ticket. And, you just go ahead and pay it. So same philosophy, we're just trying to give that push to get that owner to go through that process. So that's kind of our first letter that would go out. We have about a 67% average rate on registrations on that first letter. If they don't get registered in the first letter, typically a second letter sent out, maybe a little bit stronger legal language, maybe it's certified where they have to sign for it. When we get to the second letters, we're typically in the 75 to 80 percentile of those hosts going through that registration process. But these letters, once again, are not just all about registrations. You can have an audit letter, you can have, max capacity violation letter, violation of the number of nights, whatever you're trying to communicate with that host. We can put those templates in our system, and it literally takes just a couple clicks, about 15 seconds to send out a letter. So it's pretty quick and simple. And like I mentioned, most people do this in batches, but I just want to kind of show you what it looks like from that process. So that's kind of the compliance monitoring portion of, once we've identified a short-term rental, how do you get them registered? What's that kind of next step? So I'll take a break. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you just started to say to take a break. So my question is, how are the logistics with that? Are we the ones going through the software and clicking and issuing at the end of the month for example, those letters? So we're generating that from our building and zoning. Okay. Right.
And I'll show you just the easiest way to do that. That's a good point. So if I have a report here, should pull up here kind of quick. What you can do, most people do, is have a report that's generated every 30 days for all the short-term rentals we identified that we know are not registered within Red Hook. And then it would just come in here and you can just say send a letter, and then you can just click all, and then just hit send, and then we'll go to us and we'll mail those letters out in bulk to everyone.
Okay.
So it takes about literally, a good example is I have a customer in Florida that has their community has 1,000 short-term rentals, and code enforcement spends about an hour a week managing 1,000 short-term rentals. So it's, we try to make it easy on the back end, and, not as much, obviously on your front end trying to do that work.
Super.
So perfect. Okay. The other thing I'll show you, I know you were talking about, I read through the ordinance, looking at limiting nights, based on the number of nights per calendar year, based on that. So we can also do what we call rental activity monitoring is another feature that we have that Dutchess County has as well. And Dutchess uses it for tax purposes. But I'll show you how you can use it for, pull it up here, use it for nights. So you can have a report run. It's going to based on here, for example, you'll see the address up here. It's on Baleen, Kittery, Maine, unit number, number of bookings. So this, a low estimate is what I talked about when we have the documented stay. So we know 100% that's when somebody stayed there. So we provide two estimates. What we call a low estimate is, kind of guaranteed the number of nights have been rented during a month or quarter or annually. And then second, we have a mid estimate. And mid estimate's based off the calendars where there's not a review. And we have an algorithm, our software can look at the calendars and look at the minimum nights that they're required to stay, and then come up with a good, what we call like a mid estimate of the number of nights. So it gives you kind of the data behind that. So for example, you'll see here a number of bookings on the platforms with 31. They're requiring 2 nights to stay there. So a low estimate would be 62 nights for this quarter that we're estimating. If we look at the mid estimate based on their fully calendars blocked off, we're looking at about 105 nights. So this will at least give you, indication on the number of nights that are being rented per each location. And you can filter this based on, if you say 200, I think it was 20 days or 280 days, filter it down. If you say, 28 days or less, you can filter these reports based on your ordinance and what's important to you. At least gives you the data to have that conversation or send a letter out to that host and, for that information.
Okay.
Any questions on this? Everybody's good? Okay. I'll show you one more thing. Let me go to the hotline. And I don't know if this is important, but it's something that we do offer. What we provide is what we call a short-term rental hotline. So we provide an 800 number for the community of Red Hook, and we also provide an online form as well. And it's a good way to get feedback from your community about the short-term rentals that are causing issues. So whether it's party houses, parking issues, sanitation and trash issues, and there's times of issues, and it gives a real-time a resolution to that as well. So we have a call center. They're US based, 24 hours a day. And we would have a designated 800 number for Red Hook, and neighbors could call in with a complaint. We'll receive that call, log that call. We'll look up the information about the owner inside of our system, and then we'll actually document that information and then call that owner or that caretaker directly and try to resolve that issue. So for example, if it's some college students out in the hot tub at 1 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, we'll take down the information from the caller that calls in. We'll call that host, let them know that there's been an issue. Some neighbors are called in. We need you to go resolve that issue and talk to those renters. And we'll give them typically, an hour or 30 minutes based on your ordinance, where that time frame is to resolve that issue. We'll wait for the owner to call us back. If they don't, we'll follow up with them. And once the owner says, yes, hey, I've talked to the renters, they're quiet, before we close it out, we actually call that neighbor or complainant back and check in with them first before we close off this call and make sure that. And if the neighbor says, yes, it's quiet now, thanks, then we'll log this information in our system. This is just a dashboard, so this is good information. It will show you number of calls in the past 30 days, distribution by complaint. Typically, most of our calls are, unfortunately, noise oriented, but you can see a breakdown. This could be seasonality. Maybe it's parking or maybe it's noise. Then you have complaints by address, which is really important. So you kind of have those repeat offenders. So you can see this address up here is at 38 calls this year. So obviously not a good host, not somebody who's trying to, work with the community and causing issues. So you have that documentation on the number of calls. Also, the opposite of that is we have complaints by reporting party. So we're not saying, this happens everywhere, but some neighbors just maybe have beef with another neighbor, or they don't like somebody in the neighborhood and they're constantly calling. So we document that as well. So you have that information as well. So that's kind of our hotline. It's pretty inexpensive. It takes the workload off of typically code enforcement or your sheriff or police department. And then let me show you this. We keep track of everything. So we record every call. So when a neighbor calls in, we record it for documentation and record every call that we call to that host or owner, and then document all that information within inside of our system. So you can listen to any of the call recordings if you wanted to, about the neighbor who called in for documentation purposes. But the idea behind it is, if code enforcement or whoever handles that comes in on a Monday morning, they can log into our system, see what happened over the weekend. If there wasn't a resolution, then they can reach out to that host or owner to, hopefully, fix that issue or that problem. So that's our hotline. Any questions on the hotline? Does that make sense to everybody?
Oh, it's good.
I have one quick question.
Absolutely.
Bruce, how long do you retain the recorded calls?
Forever. So yeah, we keep everything forever. So it's kind of, we work a lot with federal government, so we just have the storage capacity, so we keep everything forever. So
Thank you.
perfect. Absolutely. Okay. Do you have a question? Sorry. No? Okay. Last thing I'll show you is just something we can offer as well, is we can actually take the workload off by doing the registrations for you. The idea behind it is two things. One is to make it easy on the person with inside your organization. So whether it's the clerk's office or business office, from having to process the applications, whether they're paper or online. And then second is make it really easy for that host or that owner to go through that registration process, especially if it's somebody who may be out of town, who's not local, and get registered. So I'm going to show you Dutchess County really quick. Jump over here to show you how theirs looks. Sorry, switch screens. Can everybody see this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is their live site. So we actually handle the tax and the registration. But the idea behind it is this is completely online, but it's also smartphone enabled. And why that's important, I think last quarter, about 43% of all the registrations with inside of our software was done with a smartphone. So most of the homeowners today with the Airbnb and HomeAway and VRBO all use their app, and they're used to going through that app on their cell phone and taking bookings, changing reservations, doing everything through their phone. So we are smartphone enabled, so they can literally go through this process with their phone, but they can still go through a computer, a laptop, an iPad, any way you want to do that and have this set up. And if you have people who are maybe elderly people who don't feel secure on the internet and they want to use maybe paper, you can pull this up at your local office, and as they're doing the application, you can just put it in yourself. So we can go through that process. So the idea behind it is we're asking Q&A, so questions to go through your registration process. We're trying to make it like an Amazon buying experience. So rather than just kind of go through a list of details, we'll ask them questions and kind of walk them through it. So let's see, register. I'm just going to show you. So for example, the owner or my property manager, if you're a property manager, we'd have to put in your parcel. If you're the owner, put in here. We can go through, we can collect all the documentation. So if you have, you want sketchings of the layout of the house, if you want proof of fire extinguishers, if you want insurance paperwork, inspection paperwork, anything that you need, they can either upload that from their computer directly into our system, or they can take a picture of it with their phone, like their driver's license, any paperwork, and it'll automatically upload in our system in a PDF. And then we walk them through the whole application, have it completed. So if they get to a certain point and they don't have, sorry about that, and they don't have maybe their insurance paperwork, we're not going to let them go through and complete that registration. We'll save their place and they can log back in and then complete it later time. But once we've collected all the documentation, answer all the questions, then we would simply send an email to the clerk or the business officer, whoever handles the registrations, and let them know there's a new registration completed inside of our software, and they can just log in the software and make sure all that documentation is there and everything that they need. Make sure it's maybe somebody that's approved or somebody that's kind of been banned as a short-term rental, and approve it and then send out the license. So it just kind of speeds up the process, helps with that, obviously with your team, makes it easier for the host, but we can do that as well. So that's just kind of what we call our mobile enabled registration. Okay. So I know it's a lot. I'm going to go ahead and take a break here. I think that's everything. Hopefully I covered everything. I didn't want to overwhelm and go through too much. We do have a lot, but any questions on anything that I've shown?
I don't have questions about what you've shown. I'll
Okay.
have questions about the modular pricing and how
That's where I'm going next. Perfect.
Okay.
Awesome.
Intersects
Perfect.
with Dutchess County and the services you provide them versus
Sure.
services
Absolutely.
you provide us.
Can I ask a question about the online payments. Where
Yes.
do funds go? Who handles that funding transaction?
Sure.
How's that?
Good question. So we work with Stripe. So we're not in the credit card business or e-check processing. So we would set you up with Stripe as a partner. Stripe does all the transactions in the back end. Stripe, if you've ever used Amazon, Stripe is the credit card processor for Amazon. We use Stripe because we work with like 15 of the federal agencies, so DoD, IRS. We have to follow FedRAMP and all these different certifications on PCI compliance. So they're the one provider out there online that's that hits all those government compliances. The cost wise for an e-check is 0.08% for the host, or a $5 max on a registration. And then on a credit card, I think it's 2.67 currently. So that would go to the host or owner as an online transaction to process that. You would have account set up with Stripe, and it would go into your designated bank account, and it goes in batches, typically every 48 to 72 hours. And you can track all those transactions within our software. So you can log into our software. You can see, what registrations are processed. We pull in the Stripe data. As you can see when it's processed and when it's going to anticipate to arrive into your bank account. So you can reconcile those dollars and see those dollars in real time. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, welcome. Okay. Any other questions?
Well, you're about to get to modular pricing. So
I am. I'm going exactly. I'm going to go to pricing right now. So, so our pricing is modular pricing. So it's based on what you need today and what's important to you. I always stress, especially with communities have a new ordinance they're starting off, always take the crawl, walk, run philosophy, right? So you want to bite off more you can chew. Get things that are really important to you today, because the first time that you have a new ordinance that's going out and you're trying to enforce it, you just can't get everything done physically in the first year. You really need to want to focus what's important to you. So maybe it's identifying the short-term rentals. Maybe you're looking at the number of nights that they're renting, all those kind of pieces. And that's why we have modular software. So you can kind of pick and choose what you want. So address identification is the homepage that I was showing you, where you log in, you can see the reporting, all the documentation, the snapshots, the maps. That's address identification, and that's based on $45 per listing per year. So that's just a flat rate. Everything else is based on the rental units or the actual properties. So let me go back up here. I want to make this bigger. I apologize for the screen, but you have currently 106 listings and then 68 unique rental units. Let me go back here and blow this up. So the reason we have to do address identification per listing is because initially when we go in, we have no idea who that owner is, what sites they're on, how many properties they own. And eventually we go through that process of identifying them. Then we're going to be able to match up with your assessor data, and then we can say, okay, here's John Doe. He owns 3 properties and he's on these sites. So address identification is based on the number of listings. The rest of the modules are based on the actual properties themselves, because by then we've identified them, we know who they are. So this is the breakdown, and these are all per year on an annual basis. And this is all inclusive, just flat pricing for the year. So address identification would be $45 per listing. Compliance monitoring is where we're sending out the letters for you. And that's a flat rate of $22.50 per property per year. Unlimited letters is just one flat fee for the year. Our permitting registration, which I showed you, like Dutchess uses, that's a flat rate of $5K per year. So that's building the site, because it is custom built. We build it from scratch. We can do, anything basically with that site. So as complex as you want or as simple as you want. Then our hotline is going to be $12 per rental unit per year, a flat fee. Rental activity monitoring, that's if you really want to understand the actual number of nights they're renting per year. That's what we call rental activity monitoring. So that's something that you may want to look at initially or may not want to look at until you've kind of gone through the process. So that's why we do it a la carte. So I'm going to show you annually what it looks like right here next. This is a breakdown annually. So our address identification would be $48.60 per year. And that's all inclusive of the setup, training, and then support. You'll have like one person that's assigned to your team that you'll work with on a monthly basis that will go through reports with you and help you throughout the year. And then compliance monitoring would be $1,485. That's sending out the letters regardless of the number of letters. And then our hotline would be $792 per year. And that's, calling to the hotline, receiving all the calls. And then rental activity monitoring is going to be the number of nights that they've rented. That's about $19.80 per year. So these all these are locked in for 12 months. So regardless if you go up or down. So if you have your high season, and right now you have 68 rental units, and say in June you have 112 or 115, the pricing stays the same. We're not going to charge you for anything above that because it's locked in for the 12 months. That's kind of how our pricing works, broken down.
So the modular that Dutchess County is doing right now.
Yeah, so Dutchess has everything besides the hotline. Just because of the county level, they usually they don't get a lot of calls. So they have address identification, compliance monitoring, registration site that I said you, tax collection, and then they also have rental activity monitoring. So they have everything besides the hotline.
Okay. So I guess the question is how is this not duplicative? Because you're not providing the kind of drill down data that we need, or so that's
right. So yeah, so it's so Dutchess, the way they do it, the county is they're doing it as a whole. They're looking after for taxes. They do have registration to get those registered in portion for taxes. So their big pictures, they're looking at the taxes and going after the taxes for the county. So they're not really enforcing any type of ordinance or going after specific hosts or for number of nights, number of days, occupancy levels, those type of things. It's purely taxes.
Okay. So we would need to have these modules as well in order to administer our short-term rental ordinance. Okay.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's a la carte. It's really what's important to you with the new ordinance. Yeah. I do have, communities that buy everything up front, but truthfully, by the end of the 10 to 12 months, they've maybe only used 3 of them. Okay. So that's why I'm always honest and tell you up front, is, what's important to you. And then the next year you can build on that, right? So then if you say, hey, we've had great success with this, the next year, let's go ahead and add another module where it makes sense. Maybe you're getting a ton of calls over the summer and you say, well, now we want to, for the cost of the hotline, I think it's worth it. We're going to go ahead and add hotline. Mm-hmm. So this can be added on anytime, and the modules just come on our software, so you're not really doing any type of uplift. Mm-hmm. We're just turning it on for you. Mm-hmm. The idea behind it is, we're self-funded, so all the counties are self-funded through taxes. Cities, villages, and towns are self-funded through the number of registrations that we host, that we can identify and then push them through that registration process to cover the cost.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see the benefit of using a service like yours. I think it would be much more costly for us to do this in-house. A lot of this legwork, we just don't have the one software to the capabilities that you have in order to check all those websites every 72 hours and so on and so forth. I can't imagine we can do it more efficiently than an outfit like yours. So I'd be inclined to want to start off with all the modules and then see what we actually need moving forward. Okay. Others, any questions, town board members, for Bruce?
I have one. I'm curious, Bruce, and maybe if you're able to speak particularly to the communities in New York, do they take advantage of the compliance monitoring by and large, or are there a significant number of communities that choose to do that part themselves?
So twofold, Julie, it's a good question. So a lot of them, it's 50-50. So we have some that don't start off with compliance monitoring, and then the next year they actually add it because they try to do it themselves internally. And it's just the process, if you're doing it in-house, you've really got to take, usually using a spreadsheet or taking it off, getting the data down. Then you have, your Microsoft Excel, then you're printing letters out, walking down, mailing them out. So it's just that whole manual process. And also it's more effective, I guess, on getting people registered. So I would say probably 50%, I'm guessing 50% of our customers, at least in New York. I mean, I can find out for you exactly, but I know most of them now have compliance monitoring.
So Bruce, I have a quick question. So your modular pricing, this is say for this year, at say, we'll use round numbers, 70 units or properties are identified, but say it explodes and goes to 170. You're going to, is this one of these situations you have to recalibrate every year, the pricing?
Good question. So what we do, so with our pricing, it is on annually. We can certainly do 2 or 3 years with locked in pricing, but You could do it as, just for an example, have it for 1 year and then you pay for it annually and have it locked in for 2 or 3 years. But most customers don't do that. Most of our customers, but to look at annual basis, what we do is after the first year, we're going to look at 10-month average and take that average over the 10 months. We're not going to hit you when your highest peak is during the summertime or maybe fall when the leaves change, those type of things. We're going to look at a 10-month rolling average. And I can tell you from experience what happens. Some areas are exploding. I think your area has grown like almost 20% in the last year, but we have areas in Florida that are like, 100% year over year. But what happens most of the time is once you have a new ordinance in place, you start using software to enforce it, you're going to have a certain percentage that just drop off and they're never going to pay the registration fees. They're not going to follow the rules. You're sending them letters, you're fining them. You're going to get rid of the bad hosts. And I'm not saying all hosts are bad. There's probably 10% of the population, 90% are good, but typically 5 to 10% are going to drop off just because they're not good tenants. They don't want to follow the rules. And eventually they just move over to a different model, whether they rent it monthly or long-term. And you'll see kind of a little bit of drop, which is what you want, right? You want to kind of weed out the people who are not going to play fair by the rules and not going to, help support the community.
Thank you.
But yeah, absolutely.
This is all good stuff, Bruce. Thank you. This is
absolutely
really very helpful because it has been a concern of what kind of burden it would place upon our building department, which has lately been also quite busy with other activities, as where you can appreciate. Any more questions for Bruce, who was in chilly Myrtle Beach? Just to note that while a lot of your presentation was very persuasive, the fact that you were chilly in Myrtle Beach was not, Bruce.
That's right.
We've been falling on ice all over here.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, what I can do is, you've got my contact information. I'm sure some questions will come up afterwards, next couple of days. Reach out to me anytime. I'll answer any questions that you have. If you want to set up another meeting on really something specific for an individual, just let me know. I'll help any way that I can.
Very good. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to have questions for you following up.
Perfect. That sounds good. Well, everybody enjoy their evening. I appreciate your time and thanks for letting me come on this evening.
Thank you, Bruce.
Okay, take care. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
The screen again and
thank you.
Okay.
Enjoy your evening. Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Okay, very good. What I gleaned from that is if you look at the costs, essentially we're looking at, approximately $200 for all of that back office work. I don't know how you all felt. I was very impressed with a lot of the capabilities and I started to appreciate how much work is involved in administering the code. But when we get to the discussion of fees, let's keep in mind that it looks like, at least $200 per site just for that aspect of it. And then our own department will have additional time and energy dedicated to it. So just thought I would throw that out there. Okay, shall we move on to the second item on the agenda, which is a task order. I had asked our engineers a couple months ago at the request of our highway superintendent to develop a proposal to study recurring drainage issues in the Forest Park neighborhood. And let me get to that on the screen. As I mentioned earlier, this issue is not unique just to this subdivision. Drainage issues do tend to occur more frequently sometimes in condensed neighborhoods, suburban subdivisions. And in particular, when you look at the kind of weather weekend we had this weekend, where you have a lot of frozen ice, where the natural contours are actually inhibited by these barriers, frozen barriers, you tend to get even stranger and more enhanced ponding effects. And so if you are at home and you have drainage issues in your neighborhood, that may explain part of why it's exacerbated this time of year. Okay, this is a proposal Ty and Bond put together. And essentially what they would do is continue the work. They've already done some initial investigation and take a look at what existing drainage infrastructure is in place in Forest Park. And I, at the time, asked them to not just look at a particular location that had highlighted, once again, the need to study, but the entire subdivision of over 100 houses and several roadways. And so they'll take a look at the inventory, they'll engage with the community, they'll do some mapping, and then some obviously hydrologic and hydraulic analysis. And they will do a proposed improvement plan. And, you know, we'll get to hopefully the reasons for the drainage issues and some of the potential options that we can explore. They'll also need to, you know, analyze the responsibility for some of those improvements and make sure that they're only studying drainage improvements within the town's right of way. And so the time schedule is, and I always look at these time schedules with some skepticism, but you know, they good targets would be that, you know, in the next 3 months or so, they could prepare something for us to take a look at. The cost of which is $26,500, and we can appropriate this from our reference. So do we have any questions, town board members who've had a chance to review this? We have, although I don't see it in our packet, we do have a resolution, don't we, for Shaw approving?
Yes, we do.
We do, okay.
Hey, Robert, you broke up a little bit when you were saying where the funding was going to come out of.
Oh, out of the fund balance? We have money out of the fund balance that we can appropriate for this. Increase the engineering line on the DB.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Chris, would you like to share that resolution? Do you happen to have that?
Not in the packet?
It's not in the packet for some reason, the resolution approval.
Maybe we didn't do one.
Well, I believe we did.
I'm gonna look, just 1 second, please.
And if we didn't do one, we can just do it on the fly.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we can do a motion, but
Yeah.
because you had the contract in here. No, I don't think I do see that. Maybe because it just came in and we just put this, you just put the task order on the agenda, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So if there are no further questions, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the engineering study as it relates to Forest Park drainage issues and potential improvements as outlined in their task order. And shall we make this a resolution or just keep it?
It's a motion. That's fine.
Motion.
You have a contract, so this is just a task order.
Who would like to second my motion?
I'll second it.
You, Bill Hummer. Is there further discussion? If not, all in favor, Julia Solomon.
Aye.
Jacob Testa.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing the results of that study. Okay, next up on the agenda, we are back to fees. So we had some discussions about both the fee and beginning escrow amounts for application for zoning amendment changes. As it turns out, we just received one application and we think we're about to receive a second one. It's unusual for us to have a couple of applications, and there's a lot of work involved with taking a look at changing zoning for particular areas or districts. And in consultation with our consultants, I'd like to recommend that we make the application for zoning amendment fee be $1,000 and a beginning escrow of $2,500 as part of the review. And for the folks at home, we develop our fees to make sure that we are not putting costs upon other taxpayers for activities of particular residents or businesses in their endeavors. And so that would be my proposal. Any thoughts, folks, on that? Hearing no additional thoughts. Let's go back to building department fee schedule, shall we? I'll scroll through. Okay, there's our resolution. We have a resolution for that. All right, let's look at what building department recommended again, and maybe take a look at how we may wish to modify that. Any thoughts on minimum building permit fee? You've had a chance to review some of the draft revenue and expenses with the department, and what's obvious is that we need to raise our fees to cover the costs, so we are not putting any additional costs on other taxpayers. Minimum building permit fee is recommended as $100. Are we okay with that, folks? All good? Okay. Next up is probably more importantly a larger fee. New construction or renovations based upon square footage for the folks at home. I do have this as a shared screen, don't I, or no? Do we have that?
Not yet.
Oh yeah. My apologies. So let's get that going. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. So residential. Currently, we're charging $30 per 100 square feet, which is definitely not covering the cost of the reviews of plans. The proposal by the building department was to make two increases, one on the $1 per 100 square foot, and then $100 additional separate certificate of occupancy fee. I discussed with them the concern I had about having, separating out two separate fees and the additional administration of that, and how that would sort of increase further demand on personnel to administer in this manner. And it might be best for us to roll it in together. And, considering if you're building a new house, the $100 fee is going to be a small percentage of what the fee will be. I also expressed some concern to them about the, just increasing while we want to get up to that amount that covers the cost, and we don't pass it on to anyone else. It just seems like a dramatic increase for 1 year. Percentage wise, although it is sort of the going rate. So I'd like to get your thoughts on perhaps for 2022, setting the fee at $40 per 100 square foot. And then maybe that would include the $100 CO fee. So for example, a house that's constructed of 2,500 square feet, let's say, used to pay $750 for a building permit. They would now pay $1,000, so there'd be a $250 increase. And then, perhaps we could take a look at 2023 of getting up to that $50 level, or, sort of take it year at a time and see how we're doing as far as covering the costs for the department. What do you all think about that for residential?
I would prefer, as it is, it's a 65% jump.
Okay.
I would feel more comfortable splitting it, getting to 50 in the following year.
Okay.
But, as long as the financially doing it that way is not going to cause us great harm.
Yeah. Well, it seems because we're so busy, this is one of those things that the volume, the more volume you have, the more you demand on the personnel, the more hours. On the other hand, the more volume you have, the more fees coming in. So I think it's something we're going to have to monitor closely each and every year. So Bill, you would support then maybe going to $40 a 100 square foot for 2022?
Yeah.
Okay. Others, any thoughts? Okay with that. And can we,
Yeah. Robert, would we be,
sure.
I guess maybe I didn't catch this piece. Would we be doing the certificate this year as well, or would that be something to do for next year? Would be the same amount that's listed here?
What we've been doing is we've been including that in the fee. So that would come with, see, here's a separate certificate of occupancy fee.
Yeah.
So we've been doing the building department. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking for as it's written right now, where it says
Yeah.
like $50 plus the $100 and 75 plus the 200. If we were doing the scaling up, I was just asking for clarification about whether it'd be $40 plus the $100 or
no, just $40. So that's your point, is maybe lump in the CO fee in determining.
Well, like, I guess that's what I'm asking. Like, the way that I read this right now is, right, you do the 50 times 100 square feet, and then you add 100 on top of that, right? I was wondering whether, where that's written here, like, it's kind of a change from what was in the previous version of this, whether we would keep that piece as it's written here, even if we're adapting it to $40 per 100 square feet.
Yeah, I would say let's lump it in together. Let's not have it be a separate fee and a separate administration. Does that make sense? So if you're going to do the $40, then for 100 square foot, you would then add the $100, and it would be $140 if you were to do new construct. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So add that into the total, but just not have it be a separate fee.
Yeah.
And so it makes it easier to administer.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah, and I guess I was just asking for clarification that we were keeping it the same amount and not making an adjustment based on scaling up the way we were for the $40 instead of 50.
Right. So my suggestion would be, if you have a different one, let me know, Jacob, would be to make it $40, and then add to it the $100 CO fee, but have it all collected as one fee together. Make sense? Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So are we good with that, folks? We're good for make that modification then? I'll take a note here.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, Robert. I think that you made an important point about revisiting it next year. And I think actually that probably applies across the board. One of the things that struck me when looking at the figures from the building department is just that we have fallen behind the actual cost of running the operation. And I think it would behoove us to look at this more regularly.
Yeah. Good. So let's talk about non-residential buildings, new construction or renovation. So commercial, that also would include institutional, I imagine. More work there, more site visits, typically. So it makes sense, obviously, to have a higher fee associated with that. And again, I think that the percentage increase is too much for me to support.
It's 75%.
Yeah, it's just it's too high. I think it's not that it's isn't necessarily commensurate. Let's see the kind of commercial, institutional, and theoretically industrial. If we were to get applications, maybe what we should do is ask the building department to keep some very close records on the amount of time associated with it, so that we can make sure that the non-residential work is the fee is commensurate with the work. Could we maybe support something like a $60 per 100 square foot? Is that something that might be again, if we're thinking 2 or 3 steps trying to get up to a more acceptable level, does that work for folks? And then lop in the $200 certificate of occupancy fee as well. Don't all jump in at once.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Okay.
Right now.
Thank you, Jacob. Julie, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Bill?
Yes.
Okay. Super. All right, let's keep making our way. All other barn shed, they want to do 35 per 100 square feet. I guess that's fine. That's not an agricultural one. So permit renewal. So I had some clarification about that. There is some language in our code about permit renewal. Spoke to Bob about this today, and this only applies if there's no additional work associated with the permit. Any changes. I think what we do need to have, however, is that if the fees have gone up, I think we need to have some language on the schedule about permit renewal is covers the difference in the fee. Does that make sense? So you couldn't get a permit today, let's say, and just hold on to it for a few years, and then you keep renewing it. That makes sense, that we need to have some language there, that it's a little bit like when you make a change on your flight on an airline, you have to pay the difference between what the fee was and what the fee is today. Thoughts about that?
So Robert, are you suggesting that there would be a fee that is just simply for the processing of the renewal plus any additional change in the underlying fees?
Exactly. Yeah, I think we need to have that.
And shouldn't there be some kind of time constraint on that?
I think our code does actually have some time constraint on that. I think it's, what is it, chapter 74 or something like that. If you bear with me for a minute, see if I can get that up. Chapter 74. Building permits. See what it be in fees. Fee schedule. Something. A second. Apologize for the delay. Time limits. Building permits shall become invalid unless the authorized work is commenced within 6 months following the date of issuance. Building permits shall expire 12 months after the authorized work is commenced, or 18 months after the date of issuance of the building permit, whichever shall first occur. A building permit which has become invalid or which has expired pursuant to this subsection may be renewed upon application by the permit holder, payment of the applicable fee, and approval of the application by the building inspector. So, you know, I would maybe suggest we rephrase this and say permit renewal is the difference of current fee or the balance of the current fee plus $150 or words to that effect. We could clarify the language when we talk to Bob and Steve. Does that make sense? Does that seem better than doing a 50% of original fee not to exceed? I'm not sure why the 50% of original fee was in our fee structure for many years. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I can live with that. The 50% original fee, I don't know why that would be in there because it could be a really expensive permit in the first place. The reason I asked about the timing is that I know at least during the last 24 months, there have been such a shortage of various trade skills, people who have applied for permits and been unable to complete their work just because the contractor wasn't able to get, the plumbing done because the plumber got sick with COVID or whatever it was. And I know that a lot of construction projects have far exceeded the amount of time that they had initially planned. Hopefully that's a temporary condition.
Well, that's a really good point. I think we should revisit chapter 74-5 building permits and just take a look at that language. Maybe let's do that in the next couple of meetings. And let's make sure that language says what we want it to say so that it covers those types of situations where, through no fault of their own, homeowners are beholden to, supply chain issues, for example, and we're tacking on additional fees, especially when there's, there are no changes being made. This wouldn't apply if there's a modification of the application. This would apply just simply for renewal.
Well, you might be better served rather than having to go through a local law amendment. You're really just talking about fees. So there isn't any reason that you could provide for a single extension before the permit expires at, X, whatever.
Okay.
Modest permit amendment it is or whatever.
Okay.
Zero fee if you want to, but you still maintain the process of having to renew your permits with the building inspector. So they have a list of active permits and you're conducting all of your work in accordance with an approved permit. That way, if regulations change or whatever, you still have control of that situation. But if you feel that you want to give somebody a break because it's hard to get people to do work right now, that's a fee issue more than anything, right?
Right.
Consider that anyway as a remedy.
No, I think that's good. So we could put that in your idea is that we could put it in the fee schedule, or we could put it in the law that we have the flexibility to.
No. My idea is just look at the fee schedule and you have a single, you could have a first renewal or something like that, for some limited period of time.
Okay.
For a very modest fee or something.
Okay.
Fee, whatever.
Yeah,
right?
I like that idea. What do you think, town board members? We could do a 12-month renewal and just do
In other words, before it expires, right? So that it's not some permit that you got to spend time looking up.
Permit renewal, 12-month permit renewal before expiration. I mean, do we even need to charge a fee for that? I mean, I can't imagine if somebody's trying to build a deck that we're gonna charge them twice for that. That just. And then we would have additional renewal and then put it at balance of current fee plus $150. Does that work?
So I had a question actually that relates to your deck comment.
Sure.
Does this permit renewal, I mean, the original language, 50% of original fee is scaled to the cost of the original permit.
That's right.
You know, in the case of a residence, obviously this new language, you know, a lot of those would just fall at the $150 cap. But if you were building a deck, it might be that if you were charged a flat fee of $150, that was more than your original permit cost.
For renewal.
For a renewal, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, these permit renewals generally went to the categories above.
And it seems like the cost difference, so the example that Julia just named, right? So say you have a 100-foot deck, that's what you got. The difference for that would be $10, right? In the fee, right? Between the current structure and what we're proposing to put in place for 2022, right? So say if there was a year where they waited, you know, that's, you know, it's not nothing, absolutely, but it's a lot closer to nothing than something that's dramatically going to affect the bottom line of the town. To the extent that it almost seems like the way that it's written currently, the 50% not to exceed $150 seems, you know,
You're okay with that?
like it fits, right? It's not unreasonable to have something, right? Like if there's a need for that, you know, post 12 months or whatever, that feels fair to me. Like it's not going to be a drastic difference, right? Most projects that I would anticipate that most fees aren't going to be, you know, more than that $150 in difference between what was proposed initially or whatever the fee was initially and what the new schedule is, right? So it feels like it fits proportionately and we wouldn't necessarily have to worry about lining up the current structure versus the past one. It feels like it's going to kind of line up with that anyhow.
Okay, I could live with that. Now, are you suggesting we would do a zero cost first renewal, or just leave it the way it is?
I think that's fair within 12 months, like 1 year, do a zero cost if you renew for 1 year, you know, basically buys you that 2-year window. If you let it expire, then, you know, you pay the renewal fee.
Yeah, I think having an additional 12 months, I think would be of value to folks. I'm fine with that suggestion. What do you think, Julia? You okay with that?
Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah, I mean, you hear all these horror stories about contractors walking off the job and another one. I mean, you don't want to punish people for things that are not their own fault.
Okay, so let's do that. We'll just modify the schedule to show that there's a additional a 1 year permit renewal with zero cost, and then this language for additional. Is that unlimited?
What, the renewal unlimited question?
Yeah, the second renewal, is that unlimited?
Are you asking for a limit of when you're allowed to renew or limit on the dollar amount?
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
The as far as term, can they continue to renew permits
After one? Well, I would say
after the second year? Maybe just stop.
they get the first renewal for a second 12 months gratis, but I think they should after that, then they should have to pay.
Right, and then they pay for the second year. My question, however, is what happens if this doesn't get done in year 4 or year 5? What's the fee schedule?
It seems like the renewal, you just pay the same renewal fee. That feels reasonable to me if they've already paid for the initial permit, right? They've done that investment in it. If it takes a little bit longer, if they have to do another renewal or something like that, then
After that, well,
it feels like we wouldn't want to escalate it. It doesn't seem like
no, but
that
the
would be
fees are
reasonable.
going to escalate. You want to make sure that somebody doesn't end up having a fee that's below current rates. That's my concern. So you could do permit renewal 50% of current fee, not to exceed $150. And then that would sort of cover that issue of I got a permit 10 years ago when it would only cost $10. Now it costs $50. Does it make sense? No? Because look, we're going to go up more than 50% in a few years.
I mean, are you proposing that we have something that after the, we have the first one's free, the second one is the 50% not to exceed 150, the third one is the difference between the initial and the current?
Or maybe just say permit renewal is 50%, and for the second year, permit renewal is 50% of the current fee. Would that sort of take care of that issue then? The escalating fee structure?
So when you
It seems
say
like that'd be more than charging the difference.
well,
Wouldn't
it's whatever the current is in that particular year. So if it goes up and up, if in year 3 it's gone up, say 75, it's 75% from year 1.
Yeah.
It's 50. Then you're saying 50% of whatever that current rate is in that third year.
All right. You know what? Why don't we could spend a lot of time on this issue, but maybe it makes sense right now to stick with what Jacob had originally suggested. So, and Christine, we have a year of a free renewal, second year of 50%. We're going to be looking at these fees again next year. So what we decide for 2 years from now on a permit that's pulled today or was pulled, I think is not as critical right now. I think we need to give this some more thought. What do you think? So we'll roll with that free 1-year extension and then keep this language right now for year 2 extension. We're good with that? And then
Yeah,
we'll
I think
figure out,
that works.
and then we'll figure out what if anything we want to do about year 3 at a later date, like next year when we're reviewing the fees. Okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan, Robert.
Okay. So electrical, they were okay with keeping electrical. It's mostly a independent third party that does the inspections. Building without a building permit, double the calculated fee. C of O's, these are searches. Okay, so somebody refinances, somebody transfer the property. Residential. This is per building, by the way, typically. So when you look at an institution or you look at big commercial properties, so they want to raise it 150, 200. That seems reasonable to me. Decks and porches. Think about what's a typical porch, maybe 800. 40 by 20, no, 40 by 5, say $500. I'm a little uncomfortable at $40 100 square feet a foot for a deck. I mean, maybe 2 site visits for that max. Could we maybe think about, I don't know, what are we doing? It can't be the same as a regular new construction, right? To replace the deck. 35 maybe?
No, they have to do at least footings and then they would have to do final inspection to look at,
Right.
slats and all of that stuff, right?
Right, yeah. 2, maybe 3 visits. I can't imagine it's more than 2 most times. 500 square feet, 200 a deck. I don't know, I'm uncomfortable at 40. I would like to do 35 again, thinking about the moving up the fees too quickly. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's fine. Keep it at, make it a $10 increase like we're doing above, and then revisit it next year.
Julia, you okay with that?
Yeah, I am okay with that. I think I raised this at the last meeting, but I have questions about some of these added on certificate of occupancy or certificate of completion fees as we get down the list here, because they feel like a relatively large percentage of the total fee, as well as, you know, as you mentioned earlier, the administrative burden. So I'd like to look at those as we get into this list.
So let's, well, maybe, I mean, for a deck or a porch, C of O, or I don't know if that's a C of O or a certificate of completion for a deck. I don't know. I don't think we, well, first of all, I think we've decided we want to have, we don't want to administer a separate fee. We either want to lump it in or not, right? And we don't want to create more administration. I'm okay with leaving it $35 per 100 square foot without a $50 certificate. And the same is true with demolition. I mean, I know that they need to go out there and do a site visit afterwards. And demolition could be significant. Are we okay with $35 per 100 square feet without the $50 certificate of completion or occupancy?
For which?
Decks and porches?
Fine with me.
Okay. Demolition, $100. This would be everything, I think, above a 10 by 10 shed. I mean, yeah, I really think there needs to be a commercial fee, so I'm okay with $100 for demolition, but there needs to be something for commercial buildings. I mean, you start to get into some environmentals. Commercial and industrial. Makes sense, we add that. So subcategories.
Well, shouldn't we find out from the building department what additional things they need to do from an environment? I mean, I know that there are environmental issues and things that have to be reported to DEC and others regarding certain kinds of issues that would probably come up on a commercial demolition more than a residential.
Yeah, true. I think they're going to be very unique situations, and it's going to be hard to assess a fee, because some of those commercial buildings, I mean, think in terms of God forbid the chocolate factory had to be demolished. I mean, you're looking at a lot of time and effort for the department,
Especially involving asbestos.
right? Those types of things. I would, however, like us to get to the point where we can adopt a schedule tonight. So can we maybe just pencil in some fees and modify them at a later date once we get feedback on just subcategories of commercial and industrial? Can we maybe take a look at a $500 fee for commercial and industrial for demolition? And then, they may even want to nuance it even more and do it based upon square footage. Would you be all right with that, folks?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yes.
thank you. Driveway permits and performance bond, we've already had input from our highway superintendent, and she is fine with those levels. Fence, here again, I don't know. I mean, I think $100 is more than enough to go out and do an inspection and issue a building permit for a fence. It's a common thing. I don't know that we need to raise it to $150 and include the certificate of completion. Are we okay with just having $100?
Yes.
Okay, we keep moving. Fire inspections. Now this is a little more involved. There's also a difference in accreditation. Not everybody can do fire inspections. I'd like to make a recommendation that we incorporate into the fee the certificate of completion, so that for up to 1,000 square feet, it would be $200 all toll and toll. For more than 1,000 square feet, it would be $250 all toll and toll. And again, we don't administer separate fees or separate payments and separate administration. Does that work for everyone? So we're taking their recommendations, but as they concurred, they're fine with not separating out those two fees. All good? Okay, I'm going to keep going on. Stop me if you have any questions or issues. Oil tank and abandonment and replacement. I mean, I would say the same thing there. Let's take the 125 and 1 plus 50 and make it 175. There you could see that there could be some follow-up on behalf of the building department.
Could you scroll your screen up a little?
That would help, wouldn't it? See, this is when we miss Christine Kane the most, because she's my constant reminder of keeping the screen moving. Pools, in-ground pools, above ground. Again, I would recommend that we take the two fees, combine them and make them one fee for administration purposes. So that'd be $350, $2.25. Roof repair and replace. You know, this is one of those permit requirements. Not a lot of folks realize when you change your roof, replace your roof, you do need to come in and get a permit. I'd like to make a recommendation that we do just $150, which would include the $50 certificate of completion plus the previous $100 fee. Sign permit. Sorry, go ahead.
The total cost on the roof will be $150.
$150, yeah. Now, sign permit, I don't know. I see that as only one visit. Just, it seems 150 would be, seems high to me. Can we consider just keeping it $100? I can't see needing to visit twice. Now, if it's a big commercial sign, again, maybe we should get some input on whether or not we need to add a separate category from building and zoning.
Yeah, I think keeping it the same sounds good to me.
Okay, thanks, Jacob.
Likewise.
Thanks, Julie. So fuel permit, wood, coal, pellet. Put them together, $200. What do you think, folks? I want to keep it 150 total?
Can I just understand, was this supposed to be a permit for a CO later on or something like that?
Yes, so there's not.
What was the idea here? Did you talk to Bob and see what was the idea here that they were trying to do? I feel like we're missing something.
Right. Well, they were separating out the costs, that they were trying to show that there's a cost associated with the permit, and then there's a separate cost associated with getting the certificate of completion. And so, and in a way, it would help, while it would duplicate the administration, it might help articulate to the residents that there's a second step there. But I think that's part of messaging and language that we can have in our inspections.
Right.
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 So I think that's kind of what that was about. So what do we think about wood coal pellet stoves? Solid wood, I don't know. Do we need to really charge 200?
I think it depends. I mean, I had a wood burning fireplace built from the ground up,
Okay.
a real brick fireplace, and there was a fair amount of work. There were several inspections. That's very different than someone just putting in a little wood burning stove in their living room.
Right.
I think there's different levels of complexity that are different in these kinds of permits.
Okay, so you would rather see the full 200 that they're recommending?
Yeah, I mean, I just know from personal experience. Of
Okay.
course, mine was a lot more work. It took a lot longer. They had to do footing inspections, and there's a lot of stuff that had to go
Okay.
into it.
Okay, that's a good thoughts there.
Can we fix the typo there on pellet? I think it only has one T.
Yeah. It was named after Mr. and Mrs. Pellet. Standby generator, we're okay with the 200 then?
I do have a question about the standby generator.
Yeah, okay, so that's where we
It
are.
requires an electrical. I did one like in 2014, and it
Yeah.
required a separate electric inspection. So I'm assuming that when you put in a permit and for the completion on this, you're not going to get hit for a second electrical inspection.
I believe you will. I think that's my understanding. Now I'll get that clarified by the building department, but I believe you will. I think they're two separate things. Some folks won't need to have changes made to their panel or to the service level. They're already set for it. Some folks will. I think those are two separate actions, often coincide. So that's what I would say. Again,
As a consumer, I think it would be important, at least if we're going to do this,
yeah,
to make sure the consumers know that
yeah,
it may cost them more than what we're asking for just the standby generator.
yeah.
It may, there may be another $100 that they didn't realize.
Yeah. Associated with the electrical upgrade, if necessary. Yeah. I don't think we. Well, I have to. Yeah, be curious to find out if somebody's just simply getting a transfer switch installed, whether or not that's something that requires the electrical inspection. But again, that's third party. They would need to make arrangements with, and generally the vendors take care of that. So maybe Bill, we don't do the full 175 as building is recommending. Maybe we do the 150. Does that make sense?
I think that's probably better.
Yeah. And I have to say, for folks who have watched what Ulster County went through the last few days, and certainly we went through our own bad storms, the idea that we would have high fees associated with something that increases resiliency, I'd want to keep it. I'd want to keep it as low as possible if we could. All right, so 150 then, all in. So, okay, we've taken care of the duplication of administration with the fees. We're lumping them in when appropriate. Let's talk about, I noticed it's a couple of things we needed to tackle here. We have our unified solar permit. It's on a separate fee schedule somewhere, so we should have it on this one. And then we need to do small and medium and medium and large commercial. We took a look at what some of our neighbors were charging for that. I spoke to the mayor of Rhinebeck, who he himself is involved as an employee in a solar installer, and he was able to give me some good sense of how many visits might be necessary. Again, These would be just construction and inspection related fees. Anything site plan related would be escrowed to the solar developer. And this would not include pilots or anything related to that. So in speaking with him and taking a look at other municipalities, I would recommend that we, for medium size, and that's 200 kW threshold, and then large, medium 1500, and then large 3000. Again, this is the permit fee. It would pay for inspections and any other permit related issues. The sense is that it would probably require several visits by our building department and by our engineering firm to provide some oversight. Now I spoke to, I think Chris Kane said that she was more inclined to, go up to 2,000 or 4,000 for these sizes. So thoughts, Julia, Jacob, Bill, on medium and large solar systems? All right, don't jump all in at once. Bill?
Well, obviously I have no technical expertise in this, but I would say it's a lot. What Rhinebeck's charging seems, and I don't know what their issues are, but I'd be more comfortable with, say, 2 and 2 and 4.
2 and 4, okay. Jacob and Julia, would you be okay with 2 and 4?
I think I would. I'm a little bit torn because obviously we want to encourage renewable energy development where it's appropriate. But I don't want to underestimate the complexity that I think would be required with this type of a development.
Right. Yeah, and we do need to recover. In this case, it's not just the fees of our building department, because we're going to need to be paying an engineer. And those fees are high, sometimes. Okay, so 2,000 and 4,000, medium and large. All right, we'll make that adjustment. Wind. There is an application that's been in front of the town. So it reminds us that we need to come up with a fee associated with wind. And, there's engineering involved there as well. We need to be mindful of the fact that, windmills may be, I think in this application it is proposed, the application that was before either the ZBA or planning board was on a farm. So we need to be mindful that Ag and Markets does not look favorably upon onerous regulations. And I don't know if they really take a look at burdensome fees, but we want to make sure that we don't make it too burdensome. But that said, a windmill is a very large structure, and something we want to make sure that we've appropriated enough engineer review. So I guess I would make a recommendation that we charge $1,500, and then maybe we can do a little more research and get some sense of how many inspections would be required.
Are you saying the escrow 1,500 or a permit fee of escrow?
No, just a permit fee. The escrow, again, when they come in for the site plan on these, that's separate and apart. And then we would establish escrow for them. Once they receive approval bill, then it moves into the construction and inspection phases. They've already received their approval to go do the work. Now we, as part of our permit process, need to make sure that they've constructed, whether it's the windmill or the solar installation, according to the file plans and the relevant codes.
And Robert, currently in our code, there's no provision for different scale wind developments as we have with solar, right? So this would be, I mean, I don't know that we would see a large scale wind proposal, but if we did, it would be under the same fee structure. Yes.
Yeah, I think we could revisit. I think in the future, we may want to nuance the fee for wind if somebody has, you know, 1 or 2 versus 5 or 10. There's obviously going to be incremental additional work associated with it. But I think for now, let's establish a fee, and then let's maybe do some more homework in our spare time to try to get some sense of what those requirements would be in a larger installation.
But there is currently, though, there are limits in our code. I'm familiar with the matter that you mentioned before, Robert, from when I was on the planning board, and that was a situation where the applicant wanted to build a wind generating thing that was going to be twice the height of what our law says you're allowed. So we do have some, you know, there is stuff in our code about how big, how much space it can take, and it does have to go through the appropriate reviews.
Yeah, no, all of that escrowed money, planning board, but when they finally get their permission to proceed, they're going to come in and get a permit. We're going to have to charge a fee that's going to cover our costs with making those visits to that site to ensure that it's being built to plan and within the relevant codes. Make sense?
Yep.
We okay with starting out with $1,500, and let's see if we can get some more detail. Okay, so we'll add that to the list. Can we talk about now having seen a presentation on short-term rentals? We've taken a look at the application. I don't know that you all had any questions about the application, but we need to develop the fee associated with it.
Robert, excuse me, before we switch topics, do we need to set a fee for micro hydro, or is that separate?
No, I think, you know, that's a very good question on micro hydro. I'm wondering if that's covered by the new construction, whether it's a new structure. But I'm okay with starting with why don't we have a separate micro hydro fee? And if we get one, because we may get one, right?
Well, did we get one for Bard?
We have not had an application to construct it. They came in front of us to get to work with us to develop regulations. But we don't have an application for construction yet. And I think they were trying to decide, you know, FERC determined that they did not need to get municipal approval, the FERC being the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. But I don't know if they ultimately decided they're going to go through the planning board process or not. But to the question of fee schedule, yeah, we should have, and I can imagine, Julia, that's going to require several visits too. I mean, depending upon what the installation looks like. I would think we would need to establish about $1,000 fee. I mean, you're looking at work, and certainly work in many cases with an environmentally sensitive area, right? Because this all takes place in the Waterfront Conservation District. And they'll need to be out there frequently. Does that make sense? Can we start out with $1,000 and maybe we could reach out to some other municipalities that have permitted some of these smaller hydro installs to see if we're on the right track? Are we good with that? All right. Thank you, Julia, for bringing that up. So can we jog back to short-term rentals? Seems to me that we're looking at, just to cover the costs, if we were to go with a firm like Granicus to do a lot of the legwork for us, at least $200 per year per STR. And then there will be additional work from our staffers. I think to recover the costs, we're really looking at close to $250 a year. Now that all could change if the numbers increase. Does that make sense? 250? Are we comfortable with that? Per fee? Any thoughts? Julia, Bill?
The only thing that concerns me,
Yes.
I don't have a problem with that with people who are going to be putting in a full registration to do a full short-term rental,
Yeah.
say they're in the RD3 and they want to do
Mhm.
their 120 days.
Mhm.
The one-time exemption.
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't including that. Sorry.
Yeah, but you have to remember that Granicus charges you on a per property basis, and so they're going to pop up on their map as being non-registered, or maybe they'll be registered. But what's going to happen is if people put in a registration for one time, it's going to show up. I can't see them not charging us for it. That is really kind of the issue.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how you bridge that gap, because someone wants to just do 2 weeks in the summer, even a week in the summer. That seems a lot. It's not a business like it is for other people.
So I think, he spoke to, before an application gets permitted, I think in his presentation tonight, he spoke to our review of the materials that are submitted. And then we say, yes, this is one. It's got a permit. So that's a good question. How do we handle those that are just the one-time exceptions? And how can they develop? Let's talk to this vendor and any other vendors that provide these services and see how we can handle that type of situation. Again, I think they're going to be very few and far between in those, because when you think about it, what it takes to get a place in that kind of condition for a one-time exception, I may be wrong. But I don't know that we're going to get too many of those, but that's a good consideration, Bill. That's why we take it 1 year at a time and we see whether or not our fee is covering the costs associated. But I hope you agree. I don't know how you felt after his presentation, but I really had an appreciation for how much work is involved, and really happy that there are firms out there with this type of expertise in software and efficiency, because I think it would really add a lot of work to our building department otherwise. Okay. So, Bill, to your point, are you suggesting that 250 may be a little low? And again, I'm not talking about the one-time exceptions. We have to figure out if we want to charge a fee for those or not. But let's put those aside for now.
Well, I would put it in the context of, and I'm thinking more about those zoning districts where we allow unhosted, full house, 120 days, or in the case of agricultural business district, unlimited.
Mhm.
If the average per night in Red Hook is basically $200,
Mhm.
I don't think asking $250 for annual permit is that unreasonable.
Bruce, I had asked him at an earlier phone call just to get some idea of what other municipalities were charging, and I gave you some examples at the last meeting, and there was quite a range, especially when it included escrow monies associated with site plan review. We don't have that here. But he said typically the fee tends to run approximately 1 or 2 nights of what the rental is now. That's not where we're using to gauge the fee. We're using our costs because we don't want to spread the cost on any other residents. So in that case, you'd be looking at $200 to $400. So for whatever that's worth, if that's helpful to know that. Jacob, you okay with 250? Julia, thoughts?
Yeah, I think that for this first year, I think that makes sense to kind of match it to the cost of what we anticipate spending on the compliance,
Right.
vendor, whether it's Granicus or somebody else, or and also considering what other costs may arise. I think Bill's point about the cost maybe escalating depending on if people do take advantage of the one-time exemption. But I think that for this first year, I think it makes sense to kind of map it to what we anticipate and then see
Right.
if we need to adjust from there.
Right. And don't forget, if we were to select this vendor, that, part of his presentation was that they determine the fee and they lock in that same fee for the full 12 months. So to your point, Bill, we won't have to worry about the fees going up during the current term. We would have to worry about it in future years. Make sense?
Yeah. And we'd be able to kind of have a little bit of knowledge about that going into when we'd be reviewing
Exactly.
this again.
Yeah. And I like the fact that they looked at a 10-month average. I was not aware of that. That seems right, as opposed to taking the highest level of activities or highest level of, right? So maybe that's something too, Bill, that, your question about, that peak, if you will, if they're not even using those 2 months that are peak, maybe it's not as big a concern for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the other question I have is, we talked about, the initial application in registration and the amount of front end work that our building department's got to do. They're going to physically go there. They're going to make sure things work. But then when a person wants to do a renewal, the question is, how much more work is there for the renewal?
Yeah.
If we know it's right and everything, there's really has been no substantial change. It sounds like Granicus or a firm like Granicus would still charge that same flat fee per unit per year. So I guess the question is, in the first year, there will be more substantial costs for us, but will there be the same substantial costs for us in the next year? And we're going to be, we're stuck having to charge the same amount of money in the subsequent years.
I think it's quite possible. I think if they're doing a lot of the legwork, and it sounds like they will do a lot of the legwork for us with the tools that they have at our disposal. I think that if $200 per STR is associated with the their management tools, then it's not going to vary that much, I don't think, because we need to make sure that those users are paying that cost. So
well, I guess then my point is, if in the first year we're actually having boots on the ground going to a location, yeah, having a higher fee, maybe even 300. And then for the subsequent years, for the renewals, if they're not going out and physically going to look to see if the smoke detectors and the CO2 detectors are there,
Yeah.
then we're really just incurring the Granicus or the data analytic firm fee.
Yeah.
Then it seems to me that the renewals at least should come down to more to what that fee is, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're only talking about a $50 difference, but let's see, we may, after, our first year and a half of doing this, we may think that it's warranted to have a site visit each time a renewal is up.
That's true.
To ensure that the property is still in compliance. I think, some of this is learn as you go. It's yeah, so I think let's develop a renewal fee at a later date when we have some experience in these matters.
That's true, because we're also in our law, the first permit is good for almost 18 months, so we have some time.
We do. Okay, so we'll add that to the fee schedule. I've got my notes here. And very
And
good.
Robert, just to confirm, right now, we are not setting any fee for the one-time exceptions.
Right.
Okay.
Right now. And then let's give that some more thought. And let's see, let's talk to the building department. Let's talk to vendors like Granicus, and let's see if we can understand how because that's unique in our code probably. Let's see how it's being handled in other municipalities, and we may have to come back and take a look at that with the one-time exception. But for now, at least we'll be in a position where we'll have an application, we will have a fee schedule, we can start to do work. We've asked existing STR owners that comply with our code to come into compliance by June, so we can at least get started on all that. Does that make sense? All right. Thank you, Julia, for clarifying that. We have resolution number 6, Deanna.
Yes.
Okay, I will note, however, resolution number 6 needs to be updated because it was prepared for a previous meeting. We weren't ready to vote on it. So the date on let me scroll without you all getting dizzy here. The date on the resolution should read February 8th, 2022. It even has the wrong year on it. And it is a resolution. If we ever get to it here on
Which resolution are we on, Robert?
resolution number 6, approving revised schedule of building department fee.
Oh, yes, right, okay.
So let's make sure the date reads February 8th, 2022. It would now be resolution number 6. Approving revised schedule of building department fees, and I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, Julia Solomon,
Aye.
Jacob Testa.
Aye.
Okay. And just a simple motion, can we go ahead and approve these applications now? We will need to fill in at the appropriate time what the fee is for the short-term rental one-time exception. I think we should just modify it and put TBD for now. Can we go ahead and approve these applications then? And if we need to make modifications at a future date, we can do that. We can get folks started understanding what they need to know and considering short-term rental. And we'll fill in the appropriate fee for the other applications. Okay with that?
Well, the fee doesn't get filled in on the permit application. The fee only gets filled in when someone pays the permit application, and when they bring it in,
Right.
they're going to need to know what the fee is,
Right.
right?
Okay.
It's
So we
always
don't
on the
need-
fee
we don't-
schedule because it changes
We
all
don't
the
need the
time.
TBD in there now. Okay.
No, that's not what you do. Because
Point
if
taken.
somebody submits an application, when you accept the application, they're going
Right.
to pay the fee, and you're going to, you're not going to, right?
Right.
So when the application comes in, you're going to need to know what the fee is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion, a second? We have further discussion. All in favor? Who was the second on that?
I don't think that we had I don't know that there was a motion made. It wasn't clear to me.
I thought I made a motion. I'm sorry.
Well, we voted. I thought we voted on the building one. We didn't do the
We
short
did.
term rental.
Okay, so I make a motion that we approve the SDR applications. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jacob. Further discussion? If not, all in favor, Julia Solomon,
Aye.
Bill Hamel.
Hi.
Time flies. Let's get to, we wanted to get in a quick attorney-client tonight. All right, let's see if we can quickly get through additional reorg. Okay, so let's start with Agriculture and Open Space Advisory Committee. So what we have is everyone is remaining with the exception of Talea. Let me get to that. Talea has sent in word that she unfortunately, regrettably cannot continue. And so we'll make that change. And so then I'd like to make a motion that we reappoint Michael Robertson, Peter Hubble, and to the Ag and Open Space for a term ending in 2022, and that we reappoint Marianne Johnson to a term ending 2023, Rich Bazinski 2023, Ken Miglarelli 2023, Norman Gregg 2023, John Hardiman 2023, and Sam Rose 2023. And included in that motion, I would like to have Marianne Johnson reappointed to be the chairperson ending in 2022. It's a one-year appointment. Would somebody like to second that motion?
All right, I'll second it.
Thank you, Bill. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, Julia Solomon,
Aye.
Jacob Testa.
Aye.
Okay. Assessment Review Board. So good news there is that Steve Appenzeller has agreed to join the Assessment Review Board. This is a 5-year appointment. We would want to appoint him to a term. Let's see, we need expirations of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can appoint him to a term ending in 2027. Did I do that right? 3, 4, no, 2026 rather. No, I did do that right. 2027.
No,
Sorry.
you have somebody expiring in 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Right?
Yeah, somebody expiring in 22. I don't know why they're showing on this list 2 22s.
Yeah, that's not correct because there should be staggered.
Yeah, so
5 years, right?
we'll make that correction to the vacancy, but we can appoint Steve Appenzeller to a term ending in 2027.
No,
Let me
no.
finish, please.
5 years.
I
5
understand.
years.
Yeah.
It doesn't end in 2027, right?
Okay,
Oh, because October?
yeah,
These terms begin in October, right?
yeah.
I see. So, well, right. So you're saying October 2022 to,
No, it's got to be October.
no, it's got to be,
20.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. I don't think so.
So we're gonna have to make, yeah, well, we're gonna have to make him a term ending in 2024 to keep the stagger. Right now, since we have 3 members. Okay, so my motion is to appoint Steve Appenzeller to a term ending in 2024, reappoint Pete Hubble to a term ending in 2026. And Pete Hubble, who has decades worth of real estate appraisal experience, has agreed to chair the assessment review board for this year. And that term would end 2022, September 30th. And that's my motion. Can I get a second on that? Somebody?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Jacob. All in favor, Julia Solomon? Bill
Aye.
Emma? Thank you very much. Okay. CPF Advisory Committee. Okay, so we heard back. And we need to reappoint Pete Hubble, John Hardiman. And these are 3-year appointments. So 2024 and John Hardiman 2024 as well. We have still a vacancy there. And to reappoint, I would include in my motion to reappoint Mary Ann Johnson as the chairperson, ending in 2022. Is there a second? Would somebody like to?
Second.
Thank you, Jacob. Okay. All in favor, Bill Hamel,
Aye.
Julia Solomon.
Aye.
Okay. Communications Committee, do we have anything on that yet, Jacob?
Yeah, so I was talking to Sarah a little bit earlier. I'm going to meet with her at the end of this week as well.
Okay.
So there were a few people that I know would like to continue.
Okay. Do you want to do it tonight? You want to wait and do it all next meeting? What would you prefer?
Maybe let's wait and do it next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll put it down for
23
to complete, and then we can figure out the terms there as well. Complete streets. I have more work to do on that one. CAC, we're all finished with CAC.
I think we have 1 vacancy. I don't have somebody to appoint, but there's a open spot there.
I thought we had, wait a second, didn't we have, was it Francis Duncan that we just had?
Yeah, we just appointed Francis.
Design Review Hamlet Committee, well, that's already taken care of. Disaster Preparedness Committee, I have more work to do, so we'll leave that to the 23rd. Economic Development Committee.
I think that so we have 3 people to be reappointed, and then the chair as well. And I think that we want to continue with everybody who's up this year. So I'm going to make a motion to reappoint Ken Migliorelli, Amanda Bodian, and Chris Close for terms to end in 2023, or appointments end in 2023. And then I'll do the chair in a second.
Does somebody want to second that motion?
A second.
Julie will second. Okay. Any further discussion? So that was Amanda, Chris Close,
And Ken.
and Ken is a term ending 2023 as well. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Did we want to? Okay. All right. We talked about some communications between the town board and the Economic Development Committee. Mission statement, some training. Okay. Let's vote. All in favor, Bill Hamel.
Aye.
Okay, myself, aye.
And then I'll make
And
a,
then Jacob, did you want to make a separate motion on the chair?
Yep. So I'll make a motion to appoint Christina Ducharme for a 1-year appointment to be the chair of the EDC for a term ending in 2022.
Okay. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Julia. Any discussion? No discussion, okay. All in favor, Bill Hamel?
Aye.
Myself, aye. All right, so that takes care of, I think, Economic Development Committee, 1, 2, 3. You know, this list, there's a problem with this list. So Christina as a member is not on this list. How did that happen? All right, so let's see, what do we have here? We have 1. Okay, so she's a term of 2023 if we're looking for staggering. So Jacob, would you kindly undo your motion, if you would, please, to appoint Christina as chair and first appoint her to the committee and include in your motion to appoint her as chair.
Yes. So I'm going to make a motion to reappoint Christina to your appointment as a member of the Economic Development Committee for an appointment ending in 2023, and then also include with that to make her the chair for an appointment ending in 2022.
Right, we did that in correct order. Okay, I'll second that. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, Julia Solomon.
Aye.
Bill Hamel, thank you.
Aye.
Okay. Energy Committee, we're all done with Energy Committee. Ethics Board, you know, we have it here that we reappointed Brenda, but you know what, when you look in the minutes, we couldn't find the moment at which we reappointed her chair. Can we go ahead and just do a duplicate motion, if you would? Jacob, I could swear you had this before, but just for the record, could we have a motion to appoint her as chair, please?
Yeah, I do remember doing that, but I'll make another.
You did do it, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did, but I'll make a motion now. Okay. Regardless, we'll double appoint her as chair. She'll do it twice as well. So I'll make a motion to appoint Brenda Elsey to be the chair of the Ethics Board for an appointment ending in 2022.
Okay, thanks. I'll second that. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, Julia Solomon, Bill Hamel.
Aye.
Greenway and Trails, I think we're still waiting to hear back from Greenway and Trails. Municipal Task Force, we want to give some thought about whether and how to reconstitute or to bring that back to life. LWRP, sorry, who's reminding me to scroll? Excuse me, we're all done with that.
You're also not screen sharing right now, Robert.
That's wonderful. See? See? I pride myself on multitasking. Maybe I shouldn't anymore. Okay, so LWRP we're all finished with. Planning Board, we made great progress on Planning Board. So that's looking good. We do still have 1 vacancy, but Christine Kane advises me that we may have a good applicant for that. right, Recreation Commission. All right, I did not know why we still had Lori Lovis and Melissa Germano on our list. And here's my scribble. I apologize, but Terry Lown is on. We appointed Terry Lown to the Recreation Commission about a year or two ago. So what I'd like to do is make a motion that we reappoint Jim Mulvey, Terry Lown, Tom Gilbert, Pat Bowman, Pat T. Bowman, to terms ending in 2023, Shannon Miller for term ending in 2022, and to continue with Doug Strelinsky as the chairperson of the Recreation Commission. Who would like to second my motion?
Second.
Thanks, Bill Hamel. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, Jacob Testa,
Aye.
Julia Solomon.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Red Church Cemetery Committee, we can go ahead and reappoint all of those individuals. So that's we don't have a chair for that, but really John Kuhn's the one running the show over there. Red Church Cemetery Committee, but why don't we reappoint the members to 2 years, 2023? Harry Colgan, John Kuhn, Deanna Cochran, Jackie Zotko, and Emily Major, our town historian. And I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jacob. All in favor, Bill Hamel,
Aye.
Julia Solomon.
Aye.
Thank you.
Robert, would you scroll down a little bit, please?
There's a job for a scroll master here at Town Hall. St. Margaret's Committee, we have more work to be done on that. And really, we need to understand all the expertise and skill sets before we can constitute a committee. Christine Kane being the one to coordinate that. Okay. Senior Services, waiting to hear back from them. So that's for our next meeting. Tree Preservation, we took care of already. Water District, we have taken care of. I just would note that I know that we reappointed Jerry Gilnack as vice chair for term ending in 2022, but let's go ahead and make a motion just to be on the safe side to appoint Jerry Gilnack as vice chair of the Water Board, and I so move.
Second.
Bill Hamel, thank you. Jacob Testa.
Aye.
Julia Solomon.
Aye.
Okay, ZBA. So we now have 2 spots open,
3.
3 spots open.
Jim Hegstetter tendered his resignation.
Okay, well, no, that gives us 3. So that gives us 2 spots open. I don't mind being wrong when I'm wrong, but we have Chris Close, Chris Carney. Oh, okay. So what we need to do is we need to reappoint Chris Carney because he's been a holdover for a long time. I don't know why that reappointment didn't go through, but 5-year term, so 2023. So I would make that motion where we appoint Chris Carney to a term ending in 2023. He needs to be re-upped. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, Julia Solomon,
Aye.
Jacob Testa.
Aye.
Okay, so we have 3 of a 5 board. So we have 2 openings for zoning board of appeals. So keep your eyes and ears out for applicants that would be a suitable complement to the skill sets that already exist there. Zoning Review Committee, a lot more work to be done on that. And I think probably we want to tackle ITF and Zoning Review Committee at the same time. That would make sense, right? Big picture. Zoning issues, specific ones. Maybe we want to think about how we do all that. Okay, very good work on getting reorg finished. Let's see if we can just about get the ones that we've had up and running all figured out by next meeting, folks. Okay. Anything else reorg related? Just for correspondence, we did get an application just received yesterday for zoning amendment and consideration. This is on the parcel for folks who are familiar. It's on the edge of Barrytown, Route 9G. Let's see if I can get to the, there we go. Subject property, look at that, properly labeled and everything. This being Barrytown Road, this being 9G, Montgomery Place Farm Stand being over here somewhere, the antique barn over here. This was the site of a gas station many years ago and was remediated. And there's 199. So if you're familiar, you come over the bridge, you come up, you make the turn. The Jehovah's Witness building is here. They are looking to ask for this to be rezoned to an ABD parcel in their application. They own and operate a farm. They are cultivating flowers and other plants. Submitted a rendering here. They're looking for a greenhouse, which I don't think they can get in very many zoning districts, and certainly not, I don't think, is permitted in the current district RD5. So anyway, we'll be able to let them know what the fee is associated for it. They've submitted some letters as well. That's what I have for correspondence. Anybody else have anything else to share? Okay. Before we end tonight, we're actually going to go into a very brief attorney-client session. If we could, folks at home, we want to thank you for joining us. Stay safe out there. Obviously, COVID is still with us. There may be some signs that things are improving. Let's hope that trend continues and we can see you in person again someday soon. Stay healthy, and we'll see you on February 23rd. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into attorney-client. Who would like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Bill Hamel. I'll second that motion. All in favor? Julia Solomon?
Aye.
Jacob Testa? Okay.
Aye.
At this time, we'll be turning off our video and audio, and we'll be doing this by a conference call, and we will return when and if we have business to conduct afterwards. Okay, thanks very much. Good night. Okay, good evening. It's 10:52. On a motion by Bill Hamel, seconded by Jacob Testa, we have exited attorney-client. I'd like to make a motion that we reopen the meeting. Is there a second?
Aye.
Thank you.
Second.
Julia. Okay. All in favor, Jacob Testa?
Aye.
Bill Hamel.
Aye.
Okay. And just to report that we will not be taking any action this evening for the remainder of the meeting. We want to thank you very much for joining us again. Please stay healthy. We'll see you again on February 23rd. Good night, all.
Good night.
A motion to close the meeting. Jacob
Second.
Testa. Julia Solomon.